As a creative, there is not a straightforward career path. You're often left just trying to figure it out on your own. Where's the line between this dream is just too lofty versus you're just not being patient enough? Today I connected with Jay Worsley, who is an Emmy Award-winning filmmaker and figured out a way to take his camera and freaking make a living doing what he loves. In this conversation, Jay walks us through his decision-making process for projects and why he tries to say no as much as possible. He dives into how to find the emotion in a story, the tactics of building a team and networking even when you're not extroverted, and he even has some unconventional ideas about how to market your work. Pull on in for this one, y'all. This is Jay Worsley.
That makes more money than streaming it on YouTube. That makes more opportunity to connect with other people. And then also, like, talk about drive. You're showing other studios for like potential other projects or other scripts, like, look what I'm willing to do.
Yeah. So what does it actually take to do this as a career? Big ass question, but just tell me the truth and don't lie. I need to know.
All right, Jay Worsley. So you're sitting on an airplane. And somebody talks to you and they're like, what do you do for a living? How would you explain it?
That's really hard because I dumb it down so much. The thing is, I've done a lot of really cool things, a lot of really memorable core memories, but I just dumb it down and I say, I'm a filmmaker.
Why do you do that?
Honestly, I think it's a fear of getting stuck into shallow conversation, but at the same time, I'm completely blocking it off. Because, most of the time, even my parents don't even really know what I do, but that's also partially my fault. I don't really go too much into it. And then sometimes I feel like maybe it's, when I do go into it, it's like, it comes across as bragging or having a big head or something like that. And that's not me.
Do you know if I was an Emmy Award-winning filmmaker, I would tell everybody. I would go through a McDonald's and I'd be like, I would like a double Mac.
I will say...
Signed the Emmy Award-winning filmmaker.
I will say, since I've won that, which was this year, I have started to just kind of joke about it, and that's kind of helped with that process. Yeah. I'll just like introduce myself, like, hi, I'm Jay. Asterisk, Emmy Award.
It's a big deal. It's a big deal, especially because I heard somewhere that, like, this wasn't the intention with your life. I think I heard somewhere that you wanted to be a firefighter originally, and then physical therapy or something, and you just kind of stumbled into this and ended up being just really, really good at telling stories.
Well, I've always done that, but I never thought I could do that professionally. I never thought I could, just because of what I was growing up with. It was never considered a real job. It was real jobs were what my parents had or what my friends' parents had. It was always, okay, you gotta just get a 9-to-5 job and then just work until retirement and then retire and then, go do whatever. But as a kid, I was very alone as a kid. And then I was also just kind of telling my own stories by myself, which I just loved. I didn't mind being alone. And actually, like, to this day, even though I'm married with 4 kids and it's always chaotic, and I asked for that, but even to this day, I love alone time. And it's so important to me. But I would just always make up stories. I always love stories. And my parents didn't know what to do with me. I was this, like, sensitive, emotional child that they just had no clue what to do with. And so I think that might be part of why it's hard to share a little bit about what I do, because I just don't think they'd understand. Yeah. They know what I do, kind of, but, not to the extent of it.
I feel like it's a very creative thing. A lot of creatives I've talked to, I feel like there's kind of like a mystery life, you know what I mean? Because most people don't even understand when you say, like, I'm a filmmaker, they think, oh, you're shooting feature films all the time and don't really understand the scope of what that could look like. All right, I said here, when we hear filmmaker, it feels really lofty, like a lofty goal, and you just talked about that. Yeah. So what does it actually take to do this as a career? Big ass question, but just tell me the truth and don't lie. I need to know.
I work way too much. Yeah. And that's a lot of what it takes, is just working a lot. And it's a lot of, when people say no, just going to the next and just... You know how actors talk a lot about rejection? Mm-hmm. It's kind of like that. There's a lot of rejection. There's a lot of pitches. There's a lot of creative artistic ideas where I'm like, oh my gosh, I love this idea for this client, and then I share it with them, and it's it doesn't land with them. So it's a lot of just kind of just going through that and following your heart and following what you want to do, and knowing that there's just 80 to 90% of it that you just kind of have to do to sustain yourself and to be able to pay the bills and take care of your family. But there's that 10% that is just, oh my gosh, so worth it in every way.
What do you spend most time doing that people don't really realize?
When you look at social media, it's like, whoa, this guy is traveling all the time, doing all these cool stuff, working with like 4 seasons and working with winning Emmy Awards and all this. But honestly, like most of the time, I'm just kind of either stuck in meetings at home or stuck editing projects I've done because I don't outsource it. I mean, I outsource like minimal edits, but I'd say editing probably takes up a good chunk of my time.
I don't feel like I'm a good editor, but I'm really hell-bent on figuring it out because I feel like there's so much of the story in the edit. Yeah. And I don't like the technical side to it. Like, my eyes just cross, and people who are really, really picky over it. But it's something really weird about figuring out what it is after it's already over.
Yeah, well, I think what I do when I work on projects, I love being there from start to finish. Yeah. So from the ideation stage when the idea starts, and then I'm essentially like editing it in my head as the project is going. So when I get to the edit, I already have a really pretty standard idea of what I want to do. But then I can kind of see, oh my gosh, we didn't get this, or this didn't quite land, and then I can use editing to kind of be that enhancement of really landing the emotion I'm looking for. So I have a love-hate relationship with editing, but I find like it's really just problem solving most of the time.
I wanted to ask you about kind of the ideation concept process, because there was somebody, I think it was the making of the behind the scenes of, it's called Believe, or the one with the dude dancing, Sprite commercial. Yeah. I think it was the main actor in that. He said that Jay came in with such a clear vision of what he wanted. And this is the weirdest thing. I've been trying to articulate my taste and get more defined what my taste is. Visually, but also to knowing what I'm trying to say, having really clear vision, and embarrassing. It's embarrassing to admit, I'm having a hard time really crafting that sometimes and having a strong opinion. I think it's because it was beat out of me as a Southern Christian Bible Belt girl, that strong opinions, you don't have those. So I was thinking about like being an artist and knowing what you're trying to say and having a clear thought. If somebody comes to you and they're like, hey, here's a remarkable, we want to film for this. When you go to that whiteboard, what are you asking yourself to figure out what you're going to say?
Well, I said I spent a lot of time by myself growing up, and really the only person to bounce ideas off was myself. The only one to create things with was myself. And so now to this day, I sit and I don't really care what the client wants, per se. Like, I understand what they want, but I have to feel something from it. I have to really like feel something internal to really want to work with them or do anything, depending on what they want. So when I'm coming up with the ideation stage, I was sitting there asking myself, what's going to make me feel whatever? Me personally, not their market, because they'll tell me who their demographic is. I also don't care what their demographic is. And I'll sit there and I'll just say, let's just say it's like I brought up 4 seasons. What's going to make me want to spend the money to stay at this 4 seasons? Like, honestly, what's going to make me do it? And I have to like really do my research. I have to look and see, is this really going to, like, would I actually stay here or would I not? And if I stay here, am I going to feel the things that they're trying to push? And if they're not, sometimes it's like, okay, one, I can't do this project because I just can't.
Have you ever told somebody I can't do this project because I don't feel this?
But yeah, I have. Wow, yeah. And it was hard because, it's like you're saying no to a project, you're saying no to, money, you're saying no to continued work, potentially. But I've learned that the more I beat myself into the ground with work that I hate or don't like or don't connect with, it just like slowly eats away at me as an artist, as a creative. And then I can't do my job as well. I can't create why people are hiring me. I can't do what they want me to do because I get so stuck into doing stuff that I don't like. So it's taken a while to say no. And there's so much power in saying no.
Tell me more.
Tell you more.
Tell me more. What you mean?
Well, I'm trying to get better at saying no, but when I've said no, it's just kind of allowed me to take control and not feel desperate, not feel like money hungry, not feel greedy, not feel like I am getting a big head because I can just say yes to everything and get it done.
Yeah.
It's saying no allows me to kind of have peace with myself and allows me to make more room for why I like what I do. It allows me to just pause, and just be like, I'm saying no because I don't have the capacity or I don't connect with it. And I'm saying no because I can say no. And I'm not going to let this job control me. I'm not going to let...
Scary though, dude.
It's scary.
Like, you're a husband, you have kids, and I'm pushing on this because I'm in a very similar situation right now where I'm cutting out a lot of things to make more space for what I feel called to do. And it's this weird gap and emptiness where our tendency, I'm not saying maybe my experience is like you want to fill it, you want to fill it as fast as you can, you want to be busy, you want to have clients, you want to be validated that you're an artist and that you know what you're doing and yada, yada, yada. And when you say no to things and you're clearing the space for something else, sometimes I worry nothing else is going to come back in. So it's a place of scarcity and all of that. And I just admire that. But I also am like, are you serious? Like, it really doesn't, like, are you scared when, like, a big client comes in and you just say no because this isn't my vision?
I'll back it up a little bit of my job because I'm self-employed and I have a team of people. It's not just the Jay show. My business is just up and down, it comes in seasons.
Totally.
And so there are times where, well, I am going to have to do this project, but how can I make the best of it?
Yeah.
And it's like, why am I here in this project? Why did these people contact me? And if I can't connect with it on a level of creativity, I try to connect with it on a way of like, I'm here for a reason. It is probably not necessarily to film something.
Yeah.
Sure, that's what I'm doing, but it could be there to connect with somebody else or to help somebody or whatever reason. So I try to find that when my season is down and I'm like, well, I can't say no to this because I got, school projects are coming up. I get school supplies and, stuff like that. So I try to say no as much as I can to allow room for stuff. But there are times where I do have to say yes and just try to look at it at a different angle, put a different lens on of what is the purpose of this project.
Go back to the emotion piece, like finding the feeling. So you use the example of 4 seasons or something, and you're going to figure out why you're going to stay there. What's the emotion? I think a lot of empathic people are drawn to the arts, but also too, I was telling you the other day, I feel like culturally we're kind of losing
for sure
feeling at all, where we're just becoming more numb, and it's not something that is celebrated, I don't think, the way that it should be. So I'm curious, like, just going to a whiteboard, where do you find it?
Really hard. I've really been in tune with my own emotions and feelings and sensitivity and artistry and all that. And I lean into it a lot and I can pull from it very easily. And it's been like something I've been able to just continue to learn and understand as time goes on. And then having kids, it's like a whole other thing, and like understanding new emotions of being a dad. And like, I have one daughter and I have 3 boys. So it's like, what's it like being a girl dad and what's it like being a boy dad and how they handle things. So it's just like this continuing of learning different emotions and how to deal with them and learning to, respond to them and not react to them and all these things. So for me, it's like I'm always in tune with my feelings and my emotions. And it's really easy for me to get there just because I had that alone time by myself to process things. And it was really great for me just to do that when I was young and just continuing on. So when I'm at the ideation stage of something, I just kind of put myself in the not the client's shoes, but I try to put myself in the consumer shoes. And what do I look for when I want to buy something or stay somewhere? What do I want to feel? And what are sales tactics that I can sniff out really fast and just turn me on? So I always try to stay away from those things and think, I want to create something that I like. I want to create something that would make me buy something or make me stay somewhere. And what does that look like, you know? And then how can we stay away from really cheesy sales things or really cheesy marketing things? And then I'll usually push all that, get this really grand vision, and then the client likes to kind of like, this is great, let's just kind of move it here, here, and here, and there's a lot of problem solving, but it's like there's still that core there that started with, you know?
We're gonna get weird and weird real quick. Just
Do it.
weird. Where do you sit on the conversation of kind of muse spirit tapping into something else that gives you ideas versus kind of like the Seth Godin approach of the, I don't know if you've read any of his books, just this whole deal, like the professional, you show up pen and paper. Kind of where do you sit on that line as far as like seeking out guidance on projects, or is this more, if you see it more as a tool that you sharpen and get better at?
I'm very easily inspired. And so when you mention muse or spirituality, like I definitely feel like it comes from there. I'm not that like practical kind of person of practice. I'm more like, this just came out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's wild.
And it's like a lightning bolt that hits, and like, I don't know where it came from, it just came from it. I go on runs, okay?
Yeah.
And I can get lost just like looking at how the light's coming through the trees. And to me, it's just so beautiful. And then I'll start thinking of, okay, well, how, like, why am I so entranced by this? And then I start thinking about all these different moments in my life around trees or around the way the light was hitting me, like thinking about the warmth of the sun hitting my skin, and like thinking about when I was a kid, and like all these things it just hits so fast. It just kind of comes out of nowhere.
Yeah. You have to practice presence with that. I'm saying I've been on a deep dive. That's a lie. I thought about it this morning. But it's been a deep dive since this morning. Thinking about presence and trying to get better at just being in the moment so I can really appreciate the nuances and these small things and be open to something bigger than me. But if you couple that with just some hot fire ambition, man, of like, let's go. You know what I mean? Like driven.
Right.
And I think that's a gift. I think I was born that way, but I've really been wrestling the more I've gotten into like spirituality and trying to get tapped back in, how to reconcile kind of the drive practical with also too the wonderment, the spirit. How do you do that? Because I mean, you're very present. I can see like in your eyes, like you're here, you're curious, you are unashamed about the emotion that you bring into stuff. It comes with drive, right?
Yeah, there's definitely drive there. There's also a lack of really caring what others think.
You care what people think.
A lack of it.
Damn. Can you bottle that up and give it to me?
Well, it's taken a while. And, like, of course it creeps in. And I used to be so obsessed with, like, peer-to-peer affirmation, you know, like trying to impress other filmmakers, trying to be, like, the cool filmmaker guy, and, like, just, like, loving the attention. And then when I wouldn't get the attention, it'd be so disappointing, and I worked so hard on creating something and it didn't get attention, and then it was just like up and down. And I just kept thinking, like, why do I even care what others think?
What broke you? Oh, like you just didn't wake up one day and like, F it, I don't care.
So what happened was I just woke up one day and
no, for real, dude.
I was just, so being like as sensitive and emotional as I am, my wife kind of makes fun of me about it, and actually one of our boys are like this too. It's like, I'll be on a roller coaster of like really happy, and then I'll come down and be like really sad. Mm. But I'm also a weirdo because I like being in the sad. I like being in the happy, and I like being in the sad. And like for me, like I'm feeling this for a reason why. You know, that's the whole present thing of like, why did this sadness come all of a sudden? And at the time, I wasn't creating things that I wanted to create. I was overworked, overstressed, traveling all the time. And it was just really stressful. Like, my wife was like pregnant with our fourth, and our third kid, like they're only like a year and a half apart. So it's like it's just like everything was so stressful, it was so hard. And then I just started to realize, like, wait a second, what am I even doing this for? You know, why do I care what Joe Schmo thinks about what I'm doing? Why do I care about Instagram followers and likes? And if you go to my Instagram, you could actually find exactly where I stopped caring. Because before it was like post. Now if you open up my Instagram, I think if you just have it open on my profile, there's probably like 6 posts I show, or maybe 9 posts. Mm-hmm. That is within the last 3 to 4 years.
How do you do that as a filmmaker where you're trying to get your name out there and build your brand and all of that? Like, how do you wrestle with that?
I just kind of, I network like nobody's business. You know, I'm just like, Like, I don't even remember how we got connected. I meant to look, and I didn't. But I think I saw one of your videos, and I was like, this is so cool. I haven't seen somebody doing this. And I think I messaged you saying something like that. Yeah. And then you messaged back. And it's like, who cares if you DM somebody and message them just encouraging them? Right. What's the worst that can happen?
Right.
Or who cares if you cold email somebody, just encouraging them or just asking, like, hey, can you give me a shot of something? So, like, for me, how do I put myself out there? Well, social media isn't the only way, for me, it's a lot of relationship building. It's a lot of just, I do travel a lot for my job, so I am in a lot of places, and I'm able to spread myself in ways that are more connecting than a shallow, like, or a shallow follow, or a shallow comment on social media. So, yeah, I think that's really the way, because you can't put all your eggs in one basket.
Totally.
Remember Mark Cuban from Shark Tank, he always talks about that. It's like, we have multiple businesses. You put all your eggs in one basket, and then they're gone. Then what? So, like, Instagram can change the algorithm anytime they want. They can change whatever they want anytime. And if you're so dependent on it, well, then what? Yeah. So, but it's hard, too, because social media is so pushed.
It is. I mean, and there's such dopamine hits with that, It feels good. It feels good to get attention, to be liked, whatever. So it's really less, I think, about moving the business forward and more about this weird illusion of, quote, brand. But you know this. I mean, following does not equal dollars. Right. It does not equal success by any means. Yeah. I wanted to ask you about crew.
Okay.
So this is so selfish. This is like super selfish. I have ideas of things I want to do, but I think, well, I need more people to help with it. Right. So when you're starting off, you need to build your network. You don't know it, but also too, like, paying people off the bat. What if it's just passion projects that there isn't money coming? It's different, bringing in contractors and freelancers for a paid project. But if it's a feature or something that you want to do, off the bat, how did you bring people in, and did you just immediately start paying them, or how did that work? Just
when I started my career, or when for the feature?
Either one.
I think when I started, it was just like asking people, hey, do you want to help? I don't have a whole lot of money,
right?
But you want to help me? I'm figuring this out. You want to figure it out with me? It's, again, like knocking on doors, and the worst thing they can do is say no. I remember there was this filmmaker that I loved, and I was first started off, and I reached out to him, and I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, what camera do you shoot on? How are you making these movements? And he just said, I shoot on a Canon. Don't email me again. I'm just like, wow. And I vowed that day I'm never going to be like that,
And that was somebody you really looked up to.
I really looked up to him. And then even after that, I'm like, he's a jerk, but I think his work's really good, But it's one of those things where it's like, it just doesn't hurt to reach out to somebody. Like, we're humans, and we want to connect with other people. And so you don't know, even if I reach out to Joe Schmo, you don't know where they are in life. And they might be like, man, nobody wants to work with me. And then they get a ding in their email box, and it's like, oh, this guy wants to work with me. Cool. Well, that changed the narrative of how he feels about himself. Or it could be like, I have no idea the path that this relationship could even go. I could reach out to this person and say, hey, I'm going to be in Atlanta, and I need a crew, and you were recommended from so-and-so. I've never worked with you. I'm just going off of, word of mouth. I'd love to connect. And next thing you know, we could be shooting big commercials together years down the road. Who knows? So I think for me, again, it's just that mentality of like not being afraid to reach out to people. I'm not like this booming presence. I'm super chill. People think I'm shy, or if people think I'm just like timid, I'm not. But I'm also not. I'm like, if you take introvert and extrovert, like somewhere in the middle, that's kind of where I am. I'm not afraid to reach out to people, but I'm also not like, I'm not going to be the social one at parties, I'll probably just let people talk, You're
finding the story, not just going in a film.
Yeah, or honestly, this is a really bad trait. Honestly, I won't care, because it's just like those shallow conversations.
Right.
So what do you do? I'm a filmmaker. Oh, what do you do? I'm an accountant. Okay. What do you do on the weekends? Oh, I play with my kids. What do you do on the weekends? I play with my kids. Yeah. Okay, cool. Great. I guess I'll move on to the next conversation.
Right. No, I feel that.
Yeah.
What do you struggle with filmmaking, building your career? What's been a reoccurring pain, growth opportunity? How about it be positive?
I would say articulating what's in here and here to like actually being on camera. It's really hard, you know, because our minds are so complex and weird, and it's, you know, it'd be like if I were to say, what's your favorite song? And you tell me, and I say, well, how does that song make you feel? And why is it your favorite song? And like, don't just say you like the beat, don't just say you like the lyrics. Explain the feeling inside. You're going to do the best you can to share it, and I probably won't get it fully. But you get it, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of like what it's close to, is this idea of just articulating what's in here and this feeling that I have, and making sure that I can get that on camera. And I would say it has never fully happened. I would say I get like maybe 90% of it, 90% of the way there, but sometimes it's just kind of not there because of limitations of, you know, I don't have $1 million to make a movie.
Right.
Or I don't have a massive crew to create this project. I just have a little crew, or I just have myself, or have a tiny budget or a medium budget, and it's just kind of, you know.
When do you like know it's time for you to let go? Because there's doing your best and seeing your vision through, and there's also freaking executing and moving on to the next thing.
Yeah. Well, I think always trying is important, and always like giving something a shot, a chance. And then for me, it's pretty easy to know this is going to work out or not. So this was my first feature film that I made, but I mean, I have a bunch of scripts written. Yeah. And I actually went and filmed the part of a different script first for like test footage to see how I liked it. And then I threw it all out because I'm like, you know, this isn't working, just because I couldn't get it to translate. I couldn't, like, it was just too much in my head, and I knew I could not, with a crew or any amount of people, could not make it into it. Why waste so much time on something that you know you can't do? Everyone says like, oh, you can do anything you put your mind to. And, okay, maybe that's true, maybe not. I think it's more so, what am I meant to do versus if I can or can't do something. Yeah. You know, sure, I can run a marathon and do an Ironman and all that. Does that mean I should, if I want to climb Mount Everest, I should go do it? No. I'm not, probably not really supposed to do something like that in my life. Probably end up hurting myself.
How do you gauge that though, man? Like, you have a vision, you have an idea for something, and you're working at it and it's not working. Where's the line between this isn't something I'm meant to do versus a grit patience game?
Well, you know, when you take magnets and when you put, it's the opposite magnets, and you start pushing them together and just feel that feeling, feeling of this isn't connecting. And that's really what it is.
So much self-awareness.
Yeah, well, sometimes it's not always there. Sometimes I waste time until I finally understand.
Yeah. There was a short you did. It was for a nonprofit. I want to call it Home. Is it Home with the two little girls?
Oh, yeah.
Or is it written here?
Yeah.
No, Dear Friend.
Dear Friend, yeah.
Dear Friend. I'm so curious about how capturing emotion and really figuring out a way. Like, it was, I mean this respectfully, I don't even really know why I was crying. It just moved something in me, if that makes sense.
That's great.
As a filmmaker, you know, you have this concept. You want to be able to show, you know, these two different girls, but they have so much similarity between them. Where do you go to, I guess, convey that emotion that you're trying to? Are you mostly focused on like angles and music? Is it really that technical, or is there something else? That's such a messy question. I don't even know how to ask this.
So there's just a lot that goes into it. Really, it's just making sure that everyone understands the concept.
Involved in the film.
I think that's like the number one, because when you have people kind of scratching their heads, you're like, why are we filming this? What part of this? I don't understand this. And when that starts to happen, that causes doubt on set, that causes doubt in yourself. So I spend a lot of time in pre-production just really making sure people understand what we're doing. You know, there's a nonprofit, they build homes in Mexico and in like Guatemala and Nicaragua. You know, there's this thing of like trauma porn is what it's called. It's a very popular term, but it's like, and people want to throw trauma in people's faces to get money in return for stuff. They want people to feel sad for something. So it's like, donate because this is sad. And I said, I want to stay away from that.
Right.
And I said, well, how are they different than we are? They're just in a different situation, but they're still they're still humans, right? And so that was the whole thing of trying to get people to understand and connect, especially on set, of like, these are two girls and they're the same age and they're being girls and they have a lot of similarities with each other. They just live in different parts of the world. And so they're trying to bridge that gap of connection of, you're not just throwing money at something that's sad. This nonprofit is trying to invite people to be a part of something to help others who are just like us. Yeah. And so that was the real push of just trying to make sure people understood that we weren't doing trauma porn, and we were just trying to just bridge that gap.
What happens when the crew loses sight of that vision, that hard day 38, and people are hot and sweaty and they're hangry and they want to go home, and I just don't even care about these two little girls anymore?
That happened on my movie.
Did it?
And I think it was just kind of exhaustion. We just did it really fast. We filmed it in like 10 days in Chicago, and it was split too. It's an hour and a half.
Wow.
Yeah.
10 days.
Yeah. I come from the wedding world where it's like, okay,
that's the shot.
You can't tell the bride and groom, hey, I missed the kiss, can we do it again? Or I wasn't really feeling it, can we do a different angle? Like, you just got it, one and done, that's it. So that's helped me a lot in my career with commercial work and not wasting a lot of time. So for the movie, it's like, we're just like, everyone, I said, do you agree to doing long days? Everyone was like stoked about it. And I said, okay, we're going to do long days. We're just going to pound through this really quickly. And so we did it in 2 blocks. I flew out to Chicago, filmed 1 block, came back, and then flew out. But it was like after Halloween last year, did the rest of it. And then it was like it was that second block. My DP, he lived in Chicago. He has a hard time piecing together things from a script. So throughout the whole thing, it was really hard for him to understand the context of the scene. So while I would be directing the actors, I'd have to kind of sit with him and explain the story more to him. And I think towards the end, he was just kind of like, I don't know what we're filming. And it's like, well, I mean, we'll get there, you know? We'll eventually get there. So it can be hard when it's like a bigger project and it's a more like close to heart project.
Yeah.
And then people are kind of just not understanding what's going on.
Are you nervous about it?
No, I'm not. No.
How are you not? I'm nervous, and it's not even my film.
Because I really like it. That's why.
I just wish you'd like bottle up your chill and just sell it.
I mean, like, think about it. Like, have you ever drawn anything?
Drawn?
Yeah.
Yeah, terribly.
Okay, or have you ever planted anything?
Yeah.
Okay. When you plant, I mean, in my office, I have so many little plants. And, like, just, like, the idea of just planting something and watching it grow and taking care of it, and then it dies eventually. You hear it all the time of artists saying, like, creating for me, not for the audience. And I think, in the end, that's what this film is. And I know it. The people who've seen it have all raved about it, so I've got my affirmation from it.
Yeah.
And they are just saying, like, I picked people who I knew would give me, like, honest feedback. So it's like, I know it's great, but I'm proud of it. Whether it gets into Sundance and makes this really big thing, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm excited about it. My son's in it, and he is like, gosh, anytime people come over, he's like, Dad, show them my part. And it's like, no, I'm not. I can't. Like, one of his scenes is like a really big scene that would give away so much. I'm like, no, dude, I can't do that right now. They got to sit and watch the whole movie. But he's just like so excited about it. And having that core memory of my son,
yeah,
and just being able to create something that's the other thing too. Like, people want to make a feature film, but they don't, and they make excuses. And like, I kept making excuses.
I feel so convicted right now because I've been making excuses.
Well, I mean, there's things that hold us back for sure.
Yeah.
And like, I wanted to make this movie for a while. And my wife was just like, are you ever going to make it?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, what do you mean? She's like, if you don't do it, you're just not going to do it. I'm like, you know what?
Yeah.
You're right. And so she's a big pusher for me doing this because I was making excuses and I was putting work in front of it. And it's true, I could just keep hustling with work and keep working, coming to Atlanta on projects and coming to, New York and Chicago on projects and doing whatever and just kind of, but like, how's that feeding my soul? How's that being an example for my kids? How's that, doing anything for me? It's not.
What does it matter? Because if you're doing good I'm just pushing on you because this is shit people deal with. What does it matter if you're a good man, a good father, you're doing good work, if you're working with nonprofits, telling powerful stories, what does it matter that your feature gets made?
It just matters to me, like, because I care about it, because I had this idea in my head and I wanted to get it out. And it's like, you know, that feeling of crying and you have to have tears come out. It's just like that. You just have to let it out. Or that feeling of a laugh where you can't contain a laugh. It just comes out because whatever you saw was funny or joyful, it just kind of comes out. And so for me, it was that release of, I have this thing in my head and I want it to come out.
Yeah.
And that's what matters to me. So nobody could see it, but it doesn't matter.
You know Elizabeth Gilbert? Elizabeth Gilbert?
Yeah.
Do you know her?
I think so.
Big Magic. She wrote Big Magic. She has this idea that...
Wait, she's the...
Eat, Pray, Love.
Yeah, yeah.
Everybody knows her from that.
I did. I listened to the audiobook of Big Magic. Yeah.
That ideas are living entities in that they come to you, and if you don't do something with it, they'll go off to somebody else. And if that don't get you motivated. Yeah. I want to have some listener questions, people, but I need my phone, Jamie. You'll toss it to me. Thank you. Susan asked, curious to hear your take on how people have been bridging the gap between old industry and new streaming opportunities like YouTube, who sees it as a threat or nuance, and who sees it as new avenues to get really unique and important stories told.
So here's what drives me crazy about the really big directors and filmmakers. Okay, I love all the big directors. Like, I'll listen to anything Christopher Nolan has to say. Like, I will fangirl hard over Christopher Nolan.
Okay.
And Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
But they say things that piss me off.
Like what?
They say stuff like, as artists, it's not about getting into studios and it's not about doing these big sets. It's just about creating. Just go create. And it's like, well, it was easier for them back then. It was easy. There wasn't streaming. It was a lot easier to get into the film industry.
You think it was easier to get into the film?
Easier, yes.
How come? Because there's more opportunity.
It's similar to the music industry, I feel like. So anybody can be a musician with Spotify and have an album and done.
Yeah.
Right? Getting on the radio is different. Having a record deal is different. But it's just so saturated now. So it's actually, you're in this bigger ocean of filmmakers who are trying to do the exact same thing you're doing. And they can all have their stuff publicly seen by anybody. So what makes you different? It's not just about creating. Now you have to do this whole social media plan. And then you've got to do a whole marketing campaign. Yeah, and even then, it's probably not going to get picked up by anybody. It drives me crazy when the big artists or big, people say, like, oh, just go create and it'll happen. It's not necessarily true. But I've seen a lot of really fun things that in this process of making my own feature, I'd love for it to be picked up somewhere.
Right.
And I would, for me, it's just, okay, I'm going to do the film festival route, and I've put money aside, and I'm going to see where it goes, and I'm going to go to some of them. And if it does, and I'm only going to go to the bigger film festivals like Sundance and South by Southwest. And if it doesn't get picked up, that's okay.
Yeah. What
I've noticed is I've just been seeing what other people are doing. There's this really cool thing where, I can't remember his name. He's from Mallrats.
Is that a movie?
Yeah.
That's also something I would not watch. Mallrats.
Kevin Smith? Well, anyways, he was saying, theaters are hurting right now since COVID. Mm-hmm. You could go to a theater and say, hey, put me in 3 theaters with 4 showings for a month, and we'll split the cost at the door, and most theaters will take it. It's like, well, wait a second. I can have my movie in a theater. And then what does that do for credibility when you're looking for distribution? Yeah. You can show, I had my movie in a theater. And actually, the movie Air with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck was done by Amazon, but what they did was they did a theatrical release. Even though it was going to go to Prime, really fast, they did a theatrical release. And then when it landed on Prime, it showed it did really well because people had already seen it, advertised as being a movie in theaters. So it gives it more credibility. Another thing I saw someone do is, it's like a movie tour. So where somebody does a comedy tour or a music tour, doing that with a movie. Saying, I'm going to take my movie and I'm going to go to LA and Chicago and New York and Florida and Atlanta and Dallas. And I'm just going to do a little tour of my movie, and I'm going to do a screening in each of those cities myself. I'll do like behind the scenes video and a Q&A afterwards, and just building that. And that makes more money than streaming it on YouTube. That makes more opportunity to connect with other people. And then also, like, talk about drive. You're showing other studios for like potential other projects or other scripts. Like, look what I'm willing to do.
Yeah.
I'm willing to.
It's interesting.
Yeah, so there's so many different things. So when you say like old ways and new ways, they're really kind of blending together right now.
Yeah.
And streaming is probably the number one thing that is where content is going. Theaters are up and down, you know. It's like Dune or, you know, Oppenheimer or Barbie or Deadpool and Wolverine. Like, those are these huge, massive movies that, of course, are going to make a lot of money in the movie theaters. But these little indie films...
One thing that you said that I thought was a really interesting point, I never thought about this before, is it's less about executing these perfect little movie tours and more about the initiative it takes to go do that. And that traction gets people's attention, and also probably throws up something in the universe that says, hey, I'm really serious about this.
Yeah, for sure. Because a lot of people don't want to spend the time or the energy or the money to do something like that. Yeah. And like I said, if my movie doesn't go anywhere, that's fine. But I think it's more so I will see the fruits of my labor from this movie in a different way.
Yeah.
I feel like it'll be like, this may not be like the movie, but it might lead me to the movie that I do.
Elaine asks, how do you convey a strong story through visual imagery that makes people feel something? What's your visual imagery tips for feeling an emotion?
Well, that, for me personally, it's going to be different than others, of course. But a lot of that has to do with composition and like lighting and how shadows...
Walk me through it like I'm 2 years old.
Okay, so there's a film, it's called Can This Be Home?
Can This Be Home?
Yeah,
okay.
That I did. It was for an emotional wellness coach.
Well, that works out. You're like,
Right.
sign me up.
You're
my client.
So we had to show like some kind of negative parts of the character and some happy parts of the character. Okay. So the happy parts visually were bright, warm.
Right.
There wasn't like a lot of weird shadows. Just felt like very warm. Whereas like the negative parts that were going on, shadows were really harsh. There wasn't diffuse lighting. There was kind of like things where you're looking at it and you're trying to like, you're squinting your eyes because you're trying to see what exactly you're looking at. And it's kind of cause discomfort. So visually, that is probably the strongest way to go about it, is where your composition is, where your lighting is, where your overall angle is. You know, think of like, you know, if you do a scary story at a campfire, you get the flashlight, we'll shine it right here. It's not a very flattering angle. Right. It's not supposed to be, though. It's supposed to be scary. And what you're doing is you're just putting a light right here. Take the light away, you're still the same person. You're just telling the same story. It just may not be as impactful, right? Mm. But if you move that light there, now you got these weird shadows on your face that look just uncomfortable. So,
how do you learn that?
Just a lot of trial and error. Just having a camera in your hand and using it around. And it's like when I was talking about running, and I run in this path, and then I see the light hit me in a certain way, and I would not have seen that unless I was running in that path. And so it's like, well, okay, if we're going to shoot here, I got to explore every angle until I see something that I really like. Yeah. And it's just kind of figuring it out, you know?
Where do you end up from here?
To my hotel room, and I'm going to go to bed. Now, where do I want to go from here? Okay, so I've said this before on different podcasts and stuff, but like, you know, weddings was here, and then I wanted to do something outside of weddings. I wanted to get into commercial work, because that was like what everybody was saying, like that's the big thing. So weddings were here, and then I started to do commercial work, and then it just kind of started to shift. And then I was less weddings to no weddings, to now it's on to commercial work. Now commercial work is here, and narrative original work is here, and I just kind of want to do that. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to be a Christopher Nolan or a Steven Spielberg. That's not the type of movie I want to make. Whatever comes out of my brain, I want to make something that I care about, And it's hard. I talked to a producer, and he's worked on a lot of big Hollywood movies, and he was saying it's the worst industry to be in, and it's all about money. And like, I don't want that. I don't want that at all. So I'm more than happy being like an independent filmmaker, making indie films where I get low budgets, when what is considered low budget is a lot, like a huge budget to me.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. So I spent under $100,000 on my film.
Yeah.
So between $50,000 and $100,000, that's what I spent. Which is like, this is happening during the actors and writers strike, and I had to get a waiver from SAG to have the actors be in the film. Like, well, what's your budget? And there's these different tiers. There's ultra budget, then there's high budget, there's low budget, or medium budget, low budget, and ultra low budget. Ultra low budget was $320,000.
Yes. Yep.
And I'm like, I told them what my budget is, and they're like, I don't even think you need a waiver for this. So it's like, okay, if I can create something, and if I can turn a profit on it, like, it's not going to take a lot to turn a profit on it, because I didn't spend what is considered a high amount for this movie. If I can turn a profit for that, say, look, I made a script, I turned a profit, it's successful.
Right.
Here's another script, give me $500,000 for it.
Right.
And like, they'll look at it and say, are you sure you only need $500,000? Like, yes, give me $500,000.
Work is what you have. Grab yourself.
Yeah, if you give me $1 million, I'm just going to go give it to an A-lister to be fully talent.
Yeah.
You know?
One final question for you, but thank you. You didn't have to change your flights to get here early
That's fine.
and meet a stranger off the internet and have her ask you a ton of questions about your personal life and all that. And I love your work. I love that you're unapologetic about who you are and what you bring to this space. And I think we need more creators who are willing to feel out loud. And I'm excited to follow you from here and get to know you better, Jay, because I stay friends with my guests. So just to warn you on that. Where would you like to direct our listeners to before I ask you our final question? Not Instagram, because apparently you don't post on there, so.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I posted twice, like, the last month.
Your film. I mean, the trailer or what?
Yeah, the trailer's on there. I mean, yeah, there's Instagram, and then there's my production company site, saundersstorytelling.com, and then there's jayworsley.com, and then there's Instagram.
That's it. I'll be linked to the show notes. Last question. What is something that you are deeply questioning right now you do not have the answer to? No foggy idea. Something that you've been wrestling with lately. And this could be something that's really silly, dumb, or it could be something wildly deep. I don't care. What's been on your mind lately?
It's really, it has to do with parenting.
Or Jesus.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. It's just, parenting's really hard, but I love it. It's like the best thing.
How old are they?
My daughter is 11. And my boys are, so my daughter's 11, my boys are 9, 7, and 6. And like, I just freaking love them so much. But a lot of times I just feel like I'm failing them, you know, and it's just like, even like little things of like, oh, their reading isn't up to the school par or whatever, or, you know, I'm trying to help my son manage his emotions when it's like, it's hard enough for me to manage my emotions. And sometimes I just feel like maybe I do travel a lot, and I feel like they're going to grow up and they're going to be sitting on some couch with a therapist, and they'll be like, tell me about your father. And he'll say, well, he traveled a lot, you know. Yeah. But I try really hard to be, you know, like if they were to FaceTime me right now, I would answer it.
Yeah.
You know, and I've done that on set before because I'm on a minute. So for me, what am I wrestling around with and questioning with? I mean, I feel like that's just an ongoing journey for me, and it's new because each year they're at a new stage of life. And so I'm just figuring it out with them, and I don't know what I'm doing or if I'm going to mess them up.
Dude, we all feel that way. Like, I have an 11-year-old daughter, too, and everything that she's coming to with me now gets harder and harder. And I'm like, I'm trying to figure this out, too. Yeah. Some of the questions she asks. And
oh, my gosh. And
then also having, like, ambition and trying to figure out where am I giving them an example of what it looks to live a lit-up life versus not being there enough. So yeah, dude.
Well, like my daughter, she's artistic. She likes to draw things, and so I'm making like swag for my movie, and I'm making T-shirts and stuff. And I had this idea. I'm like, hey, let me take your pictures that you've drawn, and we'll make them into T-shirts, and you can sell them at school and stuff. That's cool. She was so excited about it, and then she lost all interest in it because it wasn't happening fast enough for her.
Yeah.
Because 1 week I was in Florida, then the next week I was in South Carolina, and then the next week I was in California. And it's like, it was really hard to just like stop and help her build the website. And like, finally, like when I built it, she's like, oh, that's cool.
I mean, that's happened a million times with me.
For sure.
It's 11.
Yeah.
And maybe partially us. I don't know. Who knows? Okay, that's a wrap.